had an Olympic break, and we are back with episode 8 of the Chute Show. We hope you missed us. We've missed you. There's less than a month to go now until Super League finally kicks off. It seems like it's been a long, long time for the Championship Series. The streets of West India Quay in central London. 4 races in 4 weekends, all September. It will be epic. We'll preview it in future episodes. There's so much to talk about before then, though. We had a couple of races called the Olympics just gone. We've got 2 big WTCS races coming up in Canada to decide the world champion. And so many people in Lycra running around. And speaking of Lycra, as usual, we have 2 people on the show who can still pull it off and 1 person who cannot. Tim Don, Annie Emerson and Chris McCormack, you decide who's who can pull it off and who can't. Macca, you're the one that can't. How are you, first of all? It's been a little while. I know you've just got off the phone with the Olympic champion. How's he feeling?
Oh, he's obviously very chuffed, as you would be if you win an Olympic gold medal. Interesting conversation. Yeah, he walked us through the event, and still sitting on cloud 9. That's for sure. He's it's a goal he said he put out to the universe in 2009, and he said I've spent 11 or 12 years trying to explain myself. And he said an interesting thing in 2018 at the Gold Coast World Championships, he was asked a question, and he has this poster up on his wall. It was a newspaper article down here in Australia that he said, what's next? And he said, I was going to win the Olympics in Tokyo. And the Australians wrote an article on it and basically ridiculed him. Said the Norwegian confidence without any background basically was how dare this guy have this much confidence? So he said that was his motive, has been the team's motivation. And I said, oh, well, tell me who that was and I'll rub it in for you. But no, very, very happy lad, as he would be.
It's nothing like the Australian or the British media to cut somebody down. We're very good at that in both countries. Let's go to you, Anne. You've got a much bigger living room than you had before. Where are you? What's going on?
Just in Scotland. That's what we do. Down south, we come up to Scotland to go on holiday because we can't, or until this point, couldn't go anywhere else. And now Boris has said, it's okay, you can all go to France. But we're in Scotland. And it's beautiful. And we've had lovely weather. So, we're on cloud 9. And obviously just off the back of working on the Olympics, which I was massively privileged to do. And obviously, and not least because the Brits absolutely excelled.
They certainly did. My Twitter timeline was full of people praising you. It made me a little ill. Maybe it was just you retweeting people that have been complimenting you. That's probably what it was.
I unfollowed you. It was annoying.
Tim, one day you've got a big hair, then you've got no hair, now you've got a beard. What's going on, mate? You're having a midlife crisis.
Oh, for the last 10 years. It's all good. I fly out to Tokyo this week, or Japan, not Tokyo. So, all systems go for that. And, I couldn't believe the Olympics was awesome. Just watched the final events on the track and the boxing. We won another gold. I've just been loving sport, getting up super early to watch what I can.
Yes, how good has it been down here, Macca, just to have it at a normal time? It's good to have everyone in the Northern Hemisphere feel a little bit of our pain and have to get up in the middle of the night. Let's talk Olympics. We're going to start with the men. The first race on the Tokyo schedule in triathlon, hot, sticky, littered with stray media boats at the start. That was completely wild. But let's go through it piece by piece. Obviously, after the false start, which affected half the field, it was Vince Lewis with another commanding swim, but this one, it didn't work out from him. And it seems that maybe his commanding performances of 2020 seem to, the others have caught up with him. Macca, what do you make of where Vince is at? He was very quiet prior, and he didn't probably have the race he hoped he would have had given the end of last year for him.
I think Annie, we talked about it. I don't know if we were all texting over it or we were talking about it on the show, that he was awfully quiet in the build-up, and there may have been an injury in that build-up. And then I saw an Instagram post from Taylor Spivey recently showing how proud she was of her partner and showing Vince actually on one of those Gravity Zero treadmills leading into it. So he obviously, it must be difficult. I wouldn't know. I never went through that Olympic experience, but it must be difficult going into an Olympics as a favourite that everyone was talking about their event to lose and nursing an injury, right? So, or recovering from an injury. So having to deal with that, I thought he raced very, very well. He was courageous. He put himself right in the action. He nursed his way through. It was just it was one of those races. So I think we all looked at everyone, every single piece of coverage I've seen in the build-up, everyone picked someone different to win it. And I thought Vince's performance was spectacular. What you expect, you've got to bring it back to perspective. This is the Olympic Games, and he's a a 6th or 7th place finish in Olympic Games. Like, what was 10th place finish at the end? What was it? I can't. Is remarkable. It's remarkable. So, 13th. Okay, there you go. It's at the end of the day, you're at the Olympics. You're going to the Olympics as a favourite. You put yourself right there. You've nursed your way through. You're in the action from the onset, and potentially you weren't able to get those run miles in the legs that you needed to put yourself on that podium. I think he should be very, very proud of himself.
Yeah, absolutely. 10 riders on the bike initially. Chasers included Bloomfield, which they invariably do. Came together by lap 4. 2 laps to go, 40 riders in a group again. That seems to be the new standard of how racing plays out these days when you don't have like an Alistair Brownlee or whatever. We've talked about it before. Is this the way, or is that the course? Tim, what do you think? Like, was that the course that made it happen that way with a big group coming into T2? Or is that the way the men's field stacks right now?
I think at the moment it's the way the men's field stacks. You've got amazing bike riders up the front in the lead group and in the second and third group. But the second and third group are just committing. If someone doesn't work, people are shrugging their shoulders. Well, in that second group, the Norwegians, they don't care. The Hayden Wilds, they're quite happy to do double, triple turns because they want to win the races and they know they need to be in the front to win them. And they'll do whatever it takes in that 40K to get to the front. And along the way, if they drag someone who's slightly weaker up on the bike, they're willing to take that risk, but they're not going to let the race happen a minute, 2 minutes up the road. But Alistair's a big player. He's a big influence in our sport. And I think, he was missed by that lead group, definitely at the Olympics.
Annie, what did you make of the first 2 legs of the Olympic experience? And obviously you were calling it for BBC, and it started with a bang with the boat, and then by the time we got to T2, it was a foot race.
Oh wow, yeah. Let's talk about that boat. I mean, it was appalling. It was this subconscious moment where I'm kind of looking at Alex Yee kind of going and thinking, no, hang on a minute. We normally have that heartbeat, don't we? It lasts about 30 seconds and we're just waiting for the gun. And all of a sudden it was like, go. And then you saw the boat and half the field didn't go, and that must have unnerved people. There's no two ways about it. But going back to your point about the front pack, I think that Alistair is missed hugely because I do think that front pack had an opportunity. They had the likes of Johnny in there, they had Vincent Luis, they had Schumberg, they had such, strong guys. I mean, okay, we can't now, we know, underestimate how strong the Norwegians are and just how hard they're prepared to work to pull back that deficit from the swim. But I think there's no one bossing in the front group. I think they had an opportunity. Yes, it would be tough. But I think if you had Alistair at his very best, it could have been a bit different. That's my take on it. It was an odd course. It wasn't a course that I enjoyed commentating on. You didn't really know where you were at any point. It was just itty bitty. There was nothing that I like. Rio was the perfect course for me, but the course was okay. It was nothing special, and perhaps that didn't help the front pack either.
Could have been Gamagori, Macca.
Yeah, it looked like it, didn't it? It was very. I to jump in there, I tend to agree with Annie. I found that the dead turns and it didn't really. Had Alistair been there and was able to drive that front group, I tend to agree there was enough of a gap there to keep that group away, and they seemed relatively committed early. They seemed to be organised, and Johnny sort of took that mantle up. And and Martin Van Riel seemed committed to that. But then, sort of that midsection of the bike race, when I remember seeing Christian Blumenfeld on the back with Gustav Eden and in the group behind, and they were probably sitting about 25 seconds. That the pace came out of that front group. I think they started getting ahead of themselves, and that gap closed. And once they saw that gap closing, Hayden started working in that group behind, Hayden Wild, and that gap. And those dead turns enabled the group to never look like it was so far away, if that makes sense. And once they got that second group got their eye on that front group, it was always going to come back together.
Yeah, the course took a bit of blame, and it was a little featureless. Needed something to it, especially from a commentator's point of view, of which most of us are now looking at races like that. Stefan Zackhaus and Andreas Salversberg had a crack, obviously. Andrea came flying into T2, nearly went past the dismount line, but it didn't take long for Alex Yee to take over, and G looks an amazing runner in all conditions and at all times, and it doesn't really matter what the rest of the race is doing. And alongside Christian and Hayden, I mean, at the point where there was just the three of them, who were your choices? Like, who did you think with 5Ks to go was going to do the job? Because we've seen Christian do it before, and he did it exactly like he was always going to do it, which is with 1K to go or 1.5Ks to go, he was just going to put the foot down and stretch and stretch and stretch until they couldn't go with him. But with 5Ks to go, I mean, who did you have your money on? Annie, what did you think? Like, it was hard to go past Alex Yee at that point.
Well, I kind of felt that the fact that Alex was still there, not that he wasn't feeling good because they were absolutely flying, but the fact that he hadn't tried to break probably meant that he was where he wanted to be and he didn't want to go too much harder than that. I mean, I think that Christian always looked dangerous. I think Wild was a bit of a threat, but I think he lacked a bit of racing. I mean, phenomenal performance from the Kiwi. Honestly, he was absolutely brilliant. I mean, he said himself he was handcuffed to his country for 18 months, so that was an incredible performance from him. I think that reading about Blumenfeld, like in his post-race press conference, he said, I just had to go for 5 minutes. I knew all I had to do is put myself in the deepest, darkest place and just hammer it, and that's what he did, and that's why he won. But I think there's a difference between, thinking about winning and being really motivated to win and actually having convinced yourself. And I think Christian Blumenfeld had convinced himself he was going to win and there was going to be no other outcome. I think mentally on that day, he was incredibly strong. But, Alex Yee, for goodness sakes, what was it, his 9th ever Olympic distance sort of pro race? I mean, God, that guy has a huge future. But on the day, I think it was always going to be Christian's race.
Yeah. Look, anyone else jump in? What did you think about the last 5Ks? And did Christian have it in the bag for you guys at that point?
For me, I mean, the longer the race went on without Alex having a gap, the less I thought Alex would win, unfortunately. He's not racing as smart as his talent is there at the moment in triathlon. He's willing to sit on the front and it just burns these matches. Hayden and Christian, they rarely went to the front of the run, while Alex is happy to sit there. And we've seen that. And once he gets the gap, he's untouchable. But if he doesn't get the gap, he doesn't have that raw power. And then when he looks around and sees Christian, I know he's science-driven, but on top of his science-driven, he'll chew off his leg before anyone beats him. He's a tough he's a tough guy to beat. And you can see that in his face. You can see that in his just raw power when he's running. So yeah, I felt for Alex, but I mean the kid's like 12, so he's got 3 years now to the next Olympic Games. So we're expecting big things from him, but yeah, take nothing away from Christian because the longer the run went on, the more confidence he would got, and it's that big snowball effect. It was just rolling and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, and then you look, 4th place was over 30 seconds down on that trio. That's massive in men's racing. We're used to seeing them crossing the line. So those three, they really had the runs of their life to do that to the rest of the best field assembled in the last 5 years.
Yeah, to even elaborate even further on that, I think when Christian made the move that separated that group of 3 from the 6 or 7 of them that were running, and that gap started to open up, and you saw him, he moved to the front, put the hammer down, and I started asking myself, okay, which one of these 3 are just, because when you've got up the road and there's 3 of you and you've got a bit of a gap, you start thinking, oh, shit, I'm a medalist. I'm going to get a medal. And which one of those 3 are thinking, I'm happy to get a medal, and which one of them is thinking, I want the gold one. And remember, Alex Yee ran a minute into Christian Blumenfeld in Leeds only, 4 weeks before the Games. And I tend to agree. With that performance, he was off the front. I thought Hayden Wild at that point was a danger because he has such a good kick finish, and he'd been working a lot with the 5,000 and 10,000 metre runners in Australia, in New Zealand. He almost made the New Zealand Olympic team for that. But just looking at Christian and watching him run off that left-hand turn as you come back into transition, there was looked like a long downhill on the television, and he was always at the front on that. And I thought, if they don't get rid of him, he's going to be very, very hard to get past. But he left nothing to chance. He made that move again, and to me, Alex and Hayden looked to be relatively satisfied with being in the medals, and Christian got that gap and was able to hold on to that gap, and he just seemed to want it more. It's easy to sit back and say that, but as a viewer, it seemed that he wanted it more, and he took it.
I think you probably nailed it there, Macca, really, because I think that Alex came in, to this race and only worked out that he'd qualified back in June. And
Yeah.
I think the next time round it will be very, very different. But I think you probably nailed it there. And it's not that the gold was handed to Christian, but I think you're absolutely right. The two athletes, Hayden and Yi, are the kind of two of the youngest guys in the field, and they were like, "Woohoo, we're going to get a medal!" Yi didn't
Yeah.
even realize he was going to be at the Olympics. But I think, and also what Tim said, I just don't think Christian was going to lose that race. I think he would have been, I don't know what he would have done to have had to lose it, but he was a man on a mission that day. No one was going to beat him.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's wanted anything more than Christian Blumenfeld wanted that gold medal. So he's thought about it every day for the last 10 years when Alex Yee was only 3 years old, pretty much. But an all Super League top five as well, of course, with Martin Van Riel and Johnny Brownlee rounding out the top five. So there you go, make what you want of that, but we'll claim it. Just dishonourable mention to all of the media that went on and on about Christian's tri-suit, which really pissed me off, to be fair, because I guess at this point it's good to have lots of eyes and lots of media on triathlon as a sport, but when people don't, then they say headlines like triathlete's golden moment ruined by wardrobe malfunction. It just pisses me because they got no idea. Anyway, that's my rant over. Let's move on to the women's, and what a masterclass from Flora Duffy in the wet. All that heat acclimatisation training out the window. It was typhoon season. And then when you look back at Flora's journey, she DNF'd in Beijing. She was 45th in London. She was 8th in Rio. And then she drops a 33-minute 10K and streets everyone at the back end. She'll be racing Super League Triathlon for the first time in Malibu at the end of September. What a get for her, and what a race for her as well. Macca, what did you think of the way Flora executed that? We'll move on to the rest of the podium getters in a minute, but she was supreme.
Oh, she was incredible, and we saw that run performance in Leeds. She posted the fastest run time in Leeds, so we knew the preparation was spot on, and Flora is a swim biker at her core who's developed. She's the best runner in the sport at the moment, so she was remarkable. I thought once we saw the rain, when you've got the technical prowess of Flora Duffy, it's all falling your way, and she just ripped that field apart, and she took that group with her. I thought Katie Zaferis was there, but once she got onto that run, Flora was comfortable, confident, and she was never going to be challenged. And so all those failings that you talk about that I'm sure she channeled on that day, and it was a dominant performance. And there's not a more deserving. Well, there is more. There is. Everyone's a deserving winner, but she earned that, and she's paid her dues. And what a phenomenal Olympic champion for triathlon to have. She's remarkable.
Yeah, Annie, what did you think about that as you called it?
Oh wow! I think looking at the race that she had in Leeds, and she's one of those athletes that she's had a few hiccups, and it took a while to get to that place where she was in 2016-17 when she won the World Championships. But when she's on a bike, you just feel confident. There are some athletes you watch and you get a bit twitchy because you think, how long are they going to stay up for? What's going to go wrong? But she just looks like she's made to be on a bike, and she's nailed that swim bike combination for so long. And then after that run in Leeds, she just went, well, it's who's coming second and third, really, isn't it? Because she was never not going to bring that, the best run. And she was outstanding on the run, and I guess if we look at GTB and having that puncher, which I guess we'll talk about it in a minute, which was exceptional bike handling skills and also keeping your head together moment. But I think even Georgia would admit on the day, even if she'd have come up off the bike with Flora, she was still 50 seconds down at the end of the race, So I think Flora, no one was going to take that away from Flora. I don't know what you think, Tim.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. I mean, the weakest link for Flora over the last 12 months has been her swim. And, Leeds, she didn't make the lead or the second group. She had to bike up to that second group. After 1,000 metres, the first lap, and I saw her in that lead group, as you said, with the rain. I mean, she's 3 or 4 time Xterra world champion. She rides the mountain bike, probably more in the winter than a road bike or time trial bike. She has the skill. She's not just got the handling, she's got the confidence on the bike. and I think she would have but she would have burnt less matches on the bike, because she's not panicking in and out of corners. She's comfortable. She'd done her heat prep, come down from altitude, and we knew she had the run. And I think, she got into a rhythm, running off the bike to put her run shoes on, and she never looked back. And she didn't break that laser stare, and literally to the last 50 meters, she wasn't leaving anything to chance, because she really is meticulous with her preparation and her execution. And for Bermuda, the first ever gold medal ever, and it's a female, and it's Flora Duffy. It is just huge. I couldn't be happier for the small island nation.
Can you imagine that party?
Be awesome.
It would be rum flowing in the boats, in the marina. It would be awesome. I bet she can't wait to get back there, I'm sure. But and again, let's talk about that. It is the weight of a nation on her, and she handles it so well. It's just as if, I'm just so impressed with her and so happy that she executed what she truly could.
But what did you think of the tech? Because watching that race, the rain played a big role. But I don't know if you saw Summer Rappaport, because she was in that front group and was such a big run. I thought she's a danger here, but she was swinging on the back, and I'm thinking this is an Olympic game. She has to move up a bit, and she ended up getting dropped from that front group because of her I guess her bike skills and confidence in that rain. And then she actually got dropped from the second group. So, there was a few of the women that I was quite surprised of their bike handling.
I thought she'd sort of stayed on. I sort of made a comment halfway through commentary that I remember now, that she did stay on with Nicola's group for some time. And the thing is, I don't want to put Summer down, because she's a bloody amazing athlete. And I was with you as well, Chris. I thought that, she had huge potential for a medal when she was in that front pack. I thought she was going to be a real danger. She runs beautifully. She's great in the heat. And I feel for her that she's not been able to conquer that fear of riding hard and be. I'm sure her numbers are good on the bike, but she just can't stick on anyone's wheel. And it's such a shame that she put herself in that medal, chance, and then it didn't even look like it was on a corner that she came off. She just couldn't get, she just wasn't on. And my heart kind of bleeds for her, because on one hand I want to go, come on, what the hell are you doing on the bike? But on the other hand, I'm just like, she just doesn't seem to be able to get it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because we've seen it so many times. It wasn't just in the Olympics. So many races we've seen it in.
Yeah,
I think the women also rode hard. It wasn't just the technicality, because Lopez got dropped as well. They didn't get caught like in the men's race. So even on the straights, where normally Summer would maybe slowly get back up, maybe freewheel, okay, another corner, go off the back, freewheel. There was none of that. Those girls, you had Jess. Jess got the confidence, from a terrible injury, earlier in the year from Leeds, that you hammer the bike, you run terrible, you can still get on the podium. Jess believed that, and that would have, Lopez got dropped, and so did Summer. So I think Zwift is to blame. When it rains, people used to go outside. Now they're like, I'm not going outside in the rain. I'm going to ride Zwift. I'm going to ride in Watopia. And everyone rides around car parks. You see the whole JT squad. But do they do it in the rain? I don't know. Maybe Flora does. And they do in Leeds. I know that, because it rains every day.
It never rains in the garage, does it? It's always beautiful in Watopia. There's no question about that. It was a lucrative weekend for me. I had Hayden Wild to make the podium at $9.50, into Flora to win at $5.50. It was a very good weekend for me. It paid rent, kept the kids fed for the last 2 weeks, so I've been very happy with that. And another thing that made me very happy is to watch George Taylor Brown have come back from that flat tire in such a flurry, and also to see Katie Zafiris turn it on when it counted after so many column inches and so many minutes of this podcast and many others have been dedicated to whether or not she deserves to be on that team. She showed everyone that she absolutely did. And Macca, that must have been good to see. And also as with Georgia and Katie being such mainstays of Super League racing as well, to put it out there on the day and pick up medals, both coming from very different stories and very different last 12 months, but equally impressive.
Oh, the entire race was amazing. And you saw, Georgia really looked, and talking about that flat tire, because you saw that happen when she lost that group, and you're like, oh man, how's she going to deal with this mentally? And she got off, she put her head down, and she really moved well. And we did say she had that not happened, would that pressure have been on Flora? We don't know what the outcome would be. I just thought Georgia handled that race like a seasoned pro, like she just earned that silver medal. And Katie, there was a lot of question marks with Taylor Spivey being left off the team, and a lot of people going, oh, what's happening? And as far as we were concerned on this show, we talked about it. Katie's history and her performances of past earned her that spot on that Olympic team. The fact that she still wasn't on that team a long time ago is debatable, but to go through what she had been through in 2021 with the loss of her father, to have to deal with all that, to stand back up to stand back up and perform like she did on the biggest stage in our sport, and to get a bronze medal. There's that wonderful photo of Flora Duffy with her arms up in the air as Katie crosses the finish line. Everybody that does triathlon can appreciate how remarkable a woman she is and how remarkable an athlete she was. There was a tear in our household. I was just moved by the entire women's race. It was remarkable, amazing.
Well, I completely agree with you there, Macca. I mean, GTB. I mean, she looks like such a pro, doesn't she? She's brilliant to watch on the bike, on the run, and to have, I think, a lot of athletes with a flat 2 kilometers out might have gone, oh, it's game over. But that's like, it never went through her head. It was like, I just got to get to transition. And it was pretty amazing that in the end, I think she only lost around about 22 seconds or something. And it just didn't fluster her. But I'm just, with you, I mean, I think we might have been quite outspoken about how passionate we were about Safiris having that third spot. And I was just so happy that she was able to prove that it was absolutely the right thing to do on the day. She's an athlete that, you guys always talk about her, at Super League, that she's the consummate professional. She nails everything. She takes everything so seriously in a good way, and there was no one more deserving of a medal on that day. Listen, they all deserve a medal, but Katie was at the top of the tree, I think. But I think Tim knows a little bit more about what Georgia went through.
I think, I think Georgia had an amazing race. There was the only time I really was worried for Georgia is it was about a kilometre to go on the bike, and she went around a U-turn and she looked over her shoulder. And if there'd have been a wheel stop there, I really think she would have stopped and changed the wheel, and that would have been disaster. So I am so glad that there were no wheel stops in the last couple of kilometres. And I think the pressure didn't get to her because she had to focus so much on staying upright. And yes, she lost 22 seconds, but she probably was riding harder than she ever did. I bet her 5-minute max power for that race was at the end. So you've got to take that into consideration. But I think the way Flora ran, she clearly won with all those out and backs after 5K, but she didn't back off. Who knows how much quicker she would have run. I'd have loved to have seen her go toe-to-toe with Georgia Taylor-Brown and toss the coin. Katie's affair, as we all know, the selection, the Americans have such a peculiar selection sometimes in a sport like triathlon. And, they went with a tried and tested performer, and that's exactly what she did. A year and a half ago, we would have said, well, of course she's going to get a medal. And that's all she believed in. Through all of the smoke, she 100% with Tommy and her coaching team, they believed she was capable, and she delivered that. So to all the naysayers, I say, fair play. Well done, Katie. I love it.
Yes. I'm with you, Tim.
Yeah.
just on another note there, I think that she did say Georgia did say when she was being interviewed just across the line, she was quite emotional, and she did admit to the fact that there'd been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that no one knew about. So I think she did allude to that, literally just seconds of coming across the line, how much it meant to her. And I think that came from the fact that actually maybe she didn't even know she was going to make the start line. I guess no one will know, but an incredible 100%. Performance from the British athlete. Yeah.
Look, let's move on. Special mention to Nicholas Berry. Did all the chase pack work in the 5th Olympics and ran to 6th place, so we can't go past that little one. We've got to keep moving, though, and let's talk quickly about Ironman's decision to hand over invitations to Christian and to Flora, because that's caused a little bit of consternation around the trap. So people think that it's not fair and other people think that it's good. And I just want to get your thoughts on that. It obviously saves Christian a trip to Frankfurt, which is good for him. He says he's going to win anyway. But, I mean, Tim, you've got the most – I mean, you and Macca have done so many of these. Tim, we'll start with you, though. But what do you think about them getting the Olympic champions getting the free pass to Kona?
I think it's brilliant. I say bring the rain. I want the whole podium in Kona. I mean, we want to see the best of the best race each other. We see that at every Super League race. We see that at most WTSs. We don't see that in Ironman in 70.3. I think there were 18 races this weekend all over the world, so it's so diluted. If we can bring the best of the best together, let's do that. You know, whether they win or not is another matter, but it's great for our sport. It's great for the athletes. The fact that Christian is focusing on sub-7 early next year, I think this is really going to help him, that he doesn't have to do Frankfurt. I don't know whether Flora will take it up. She's already on a time trial bike. I've seen her whizzing around on a Shiv in Boulder on social. I think she'll go maybe for 70.3 worlds and then make the decision. I say hell yeah.
Fair, Macca?
Anyone who's against the Olympic champions being invited to Hawaii, they got rocks in their head. Like it's a fantastic thing for Ironman racing. And I read a lot of the tweets out there that they didn't earn their spot. Like, didn't earn their spot. They're the Olympic champions. It's fantastic for Ironman to have the best, the Olympians there. And I don't think any pro athlete that didn't want them on the start line only doesn't want them there because they're fearful of them getting their ass kicked. But at a world championship, you want to beat the best in the world. And whether they've done an Ironman or not, they've earned their spot. And as the Olympic champion, it brings a different eyes on the event. I think it's remarkable. I think it's fantastic. And I think Christian will do, he's taken that spot, he'll go. And I tend to agree with Tim. I don't know if Flora will do that, but I hope to see her at the 70.3 Worlds because I'm really looking forward to seeing her move up in distance, especially that 70.3 distance, because she'll do some incredible things there.
I guess my take on it, and I'm not as experienced at all as you guys are in Ironman racing, and I think it's brilliant to see them there, and you want the best of the best, and I agree with the points that to have the Olympic champions there can only be great for Ironman racing. My only fear is those guys are financially pretty well set up. We're going to agree with that, right? But what about the Ironman athlete that's kind of moving up through the ranks? And we know how Ironman athletes struggle financially. If a spot is taken from an Ironman athlete to be given to the Olympic champion, is that right? You know, when we're looking at an Ironman athlete who's worked, you know, if that's not the case, then that's fine. Let them go race. But
I don't think it's the case. I tend to agree with Tim. I don't think it's the case that they're taking someone else's spot. But fundamentally, and I get it, a lot of these people go, I haven't qualified and it's not fair. But this is a world championship. And the world championship's about the best in your sport being present, right? And if they're not taking someone's spot, they're worthy and they bring a lot more kudos. If you're honestly looking at Kona and wanting to race the best, not just looking at the race and hoping to get a good finish position because there's no one in it, then you're dealing with a different mindset. But I'm all for the best going, and I'm pretty confident they haven't taken anyone's position. Those open spots are there; they're just an additional position. And I do think this year it's going to be relatively difficult, the qualification for Konas and who's going and who's not going anyway. So a lot of people aren't going to go to the island. I know a lot of the Australians can't get there, for example, this year because of lockdown. So it'll be an interesting race regardless.
And this year they're playing top 15 in Kona, which is the first time they've done that ever, I think. So, but yeah, I don't think they'll be taking a spot away from anyone. And as you say, you want the best of the best there. And we'll see. How they go.
They saved last year's money, Tim. They didn't have to pay prize money. Didn't have to pay prize money last year, so they saved.
Definitely a deal done somewhere. It's Ironman. Let's be honest.
Macca, I just want to quickly touch on this one because we've got to keep moving. But Emma Carney, your old sparring partner's fired up and asked for a review of Triathlon Australia. And the only reason I would speak about Australia is because there was so much chat about the Australians getting 3 men and 3 women, the only crew to have done that. So they kind of got that part right. But the performances were substandard. So Emma Jeffcoat was 26th. Jazz Hasland and Ash Gentle were both lapped out. In the men's, Jake Birtwistle was the best Aussie, 16th, Matt Hauser 24th, Aaron Royal 26th, 9th in the mixed team relay, and has left the athletes defending themselves on social media. So what are your thoughts there? Emma says, and I quote, Triathlon Australia high performance is lacking direction, leadership, transparency, failing our athletes in providing an environment where they can perform against the best in the world with resilience, determination, and a focus on excellence. So, I mean, Macca, I'd be remiss of me not to get your comment on what you think about, firstly, the performances, but also, secondly, what Emma says.
Look, I've been communicating with Emma and Rod Sodaro and a lot of them who have pushed this forward with the ABC News here, and it's been. Let's not just focus on this Olympics. It's been a few Olympics. Our last big Olympics was Beijing to some degree, but I think going into this one, we saw ourselves as a big medal chance in the relay. We were blown out of it. I think there's some merit and some discussion to be had. There's been a lot of chopping and changing within the Australian structure, and we've looked to England, who have been leading this high performance structure for so many years. The Norwegians are now coming, but the English have just got it right since forever, right? And it seems, we're now 3 or 4 Olympics along since our last good performance. So it is quite frustrating in the sport that we really have no excuse in not being good at. We live on the coast. Our weather's always good. It's in our DNA. Kids do it all over the country, and yet we suck, right? And I'm not criticizing the athletes because it's very, very difficult. I know that what they've gone through, and they've had a tough games, and I'm not here to throw stones at any of the athletes, but there needs to be a culture change within our federation here, and it has to start at the top. If this was a business and you perform like that, you get your head cut off, right? You moved along, and someone needs to do a review, and someone needs to look at it. I think the talent's there. The talent just needs to be fed better or looked after better. So it's not whilst the athletes have to take some responsibility, the lack of traveling, for example, when they could travel, Natalie Von Corvin not getting a spot when she probably should have. She's number 2 ranked Australian in the world, and she opted to travel overseas and race the World Cup circuit or the WTS circuit because she thought that was the best preparation for the Olympics. She was punished for that. And they picked our Olympic team off a bunch of age group races in Cairns with a couple of juniors going around some witches' hats. Like it is bizarre. And if there's this high performance in anyone in a high performance environment, it's true. Anyone in a high performance environment and looking at Olympic gold as in reality and not having raced for 2 years, you cannot honestly believe that the result we got is a shock to anybody. Like of course it was going to happen. None of our team had raced. It's bizarre to me that anyone thought anything different would happen. But yeah, I think we're seeing the beginning of it. I've been texting back and forwards with our CEO at the moment, who's obviously worried about his role, his job, and I think it's warranted because it is a sport we did so well at many, many years ago, and it is a sport that I think Australia has a lot of depth in and can perform at. But there's something happening there that is not fostering the talent that you're seeing out of the UK and you're seeing out of Norway, you're seeing out of France and all these countries that are cold and shouldn't perform well, but have so much depth. And the relays show a country's depth. And 9th is testament to failings on the high performance program within Australia.
Hasn't the saviour just flown in? Isn't Joel Filiol the new head coach? So he's almost the best thing that could happen to him. Because if he'd have flown in and they had done relatively well, they would have said, well, we're not changing. Well, now they've got to say, dude, whatever you want, how are we going to make this a culture, an environment and an atmosphere that breathes and breeds medals?
We've lost that toughness at you guys. Like the Brits have come off the back of you, Tim, like your generation, and then you had the Brownlees generation, and now you've got such depth amongst the women. You got Alex G, but you had a high performance culture that was driven, that really brought a lot of young people along with it because there was an expectation of performance. You have a lot of racing you can plug into. You have a lot of things. You've got these satellite high performance centers, and you embrace the history of of what it means to put on the British uniform. In Australia, it's like, there's your kit, good luck. There's no fostering of that, and there's no desire to race. They come back here, they all sit on holidays, they post social media photos and call it training. Like there needs to be an overhaul, and let's see what Joel can do, because it is frustrating as an Australian, as a proud triathlete from Australia. It's frustrating to see athletes that are capable underperform on the biggest stage.
No, 100% agree. And I heard that the Aussies spent over $100,000
100%.
on these special shoes. Did anyone take note of that and see? If you look at the cycling and run shoes they wore on the mixed relay, they were specially designed, and they spent like 6 figures developing these shoes for faster transitions. So yeah, if you can get any photos, it's definitely worth having
I didn't see them, Tim, because when you're that far back, you don't make the TV. When you're that far back, you're not on the TV coverage.
I heard a rumor, and I saw one picture. But yeah, you're right. But they're focusing on such minute detail; they're missing the bigger picture. You gotta,
yeah, absolutely. But on the other hand, GB just dominant in that one, handing Georgia and Alex another medal and making Johnny the first triathlete to win 3. He's got the entire collection now, and they were just supreme from the start to the end. The French obviously were a little disappointing early, but scraped back to bronze. And how good was Morgan Pearson's run home to take that silver? And overall, I thought it was just an outstanding mixed team relay. But GB front and centre, just outstanding. Annie, what did you think of that? Obviously, you were just I imagine that your BBC commentary was disgustingly biased during that entire hour.
Was it? I mean, it didn't have to be biased. We were just so good. We were just so damn good, The athletes did not put a foot wrong, and it made me so happy to see Johnny Brownlee perform like that, with that confidence back, just nailing it, not making mistakes. Alex Yee, I mean, oh my God, yes, I did have my heart in my mouth when Vincent came through transition on the blue carpet and attacked, and you look at him and you know that he's a hard-ass rider. He's incredibly strong. And I just thought, God, Yee's not going to get on. What are his legs like from winning that silver medal just a few days before? And he went with him. And again, I was a bit nervous coming down to the 2K run because, Vincent Luis of old, I mean, we now know that he has been more injured than we realise, I think would have beaten Alex Yee, even with Alex on his best day over 2 kilometres, because he has such a tremendous finish. But Alex just looked amazing. And, both Jess and GTB, just brilliant performances all round. I mean, I had tipped the Australians, but I guess I didn't know half of what had gone on in terms of their selection and stuff, because they're Commonwealth Games champion, because, they're former world champions. It's, just such a poor show and disappointing, because I've loved watching the Aussies race over the years. And again, the American team, and I think, just to put the stories out there, when you look at Morgan Pearson, taking the ankle leg, lost his brother early on this year. I don't know the circumstances, but obviously devastating for the family. Kevin McDowell had, cancer a few years ago, and then Katie Sophia is losing her dad. I mean, what a team, and to hold on for that silver medal was an outstanding performance from the Americans. It really was. But, the Brits on the day just nailed it.
I pose a question. I want to ask you this because I was quite surprised when I saw the French lineup with not starting Beaugrand first, when you have such strength in the swim. When you saw that with Kinmo from the Netherlands, when you've got Jess in the women's side, and you put not that Leone, but you need Beaugrand in that group. You can't allow a group like that to go. I thought the French may have stuffed up in their start order that potentially cost them later. They're on the chase from the onset. What did you guys think?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. It was when I saw it on the start list, I was like, what are you doing? There's any chance of a gold medal gone. Yeah. There's no way that Perriot has a weak swim. She is not a front pack swimmer, and Cassandra Beaugrand should be every day of the week.
Yeah.
I think they were thinking 300 meters, she can hang on, she's going to run through in transition and just jump on the back. And I think they got their tactics wrong. They underestimated the power and commitment of not just Jess, but of, all the other, good swimmers, from Lindemann, from Kingman, from all of them. They're all biking and swimming very well. And that could have changed the dynamics, early on. And going back to the Americans, I mean, Taylor Knibb, how she closed Georgia Taylor Brown. she's another young one for the future. You know, she brought the Americans back in to fight for gold. You know, so yeah, she did phenomenal as well. There were some great individual performances that made up some amazing team performances. But as Annie said, Great Britain, they were flying. You know, all 4 athletes had
amazing.
You know, as close to perfect races as possible.
Yeah, sorry, Johnny's post afterwards just says Olympics completed it, mate, and he did. He's now got silver, bronze, and the gold to go with him from the team, and that was the Olympics. What a fantastic Olympics it's been overall. I guess I'm just used to having no crowds now at sporting events, but I think it's just been spectacular from beginning to end. But now, no time to rest. Obviously, this weekend, as we're recording this late on a Sunday evening here in Australia, there's no triathlon, but there is next weekend as we head to Montreal for the first part of the Canadian swing with, and I quote, an intense new format, which they were calling the Eliminator, which sounds very familiar to me anyway. But now they've decided to go away from that name. But let's see. I looked into the details, right? So it's very similar. A day 1 heats with 60 athletes, and then the top 10 in each heat go through to the day 2 final, plus another 10 from the repechage. And then they have 3 super sprints on the second day with the bottom 10 eliminated each time, with some very familiar distances of a 300-metre swim, a 7.2-kilometre bike, and a 2K run. I don't know. It's ringing a bell with me, this Eliminator. I've definitely heard about it before. What do we think about this inclusion of this in the WTCS? Is it required for them to stay with the times, or should they just stick to what they're good at? What do we think, Macca? Let's start with you. What do you think about it?
I love that type of format. I guess imitation is the finest form of flattery. So it's a fantastic format. It's been delivered in Super League racing for a while. It's been delivered here in Australia, and I do enjoy that style of racing, consequential racing, and the opportunity to have a second chance if you don't get it right that first point of that first race you do. But I'm just excited. I think we've talked so much about racing, and now we've just come off the Olympics. We're on this big buzz, but we've been so long without any races. It's just great that we're having the opportunity to see a lot of the athletes after the Olympics come back to racing, to crown a world champion off a series. I think Bloomfield's still half a shot at it because they use the Olympics as points. So Bloomfield's half a shot of winning a world title. Vincent's out there defending. So this will be a very, very interesting format, and very interesting because I found the Montreal course after so many years, it's relatively mundane, right? Like it's starting to get a bit flat. So I'm looking forward to a change in that. So I'll tune in 100%.
I was looking at the start list, and there's a few obvious names that are missing. Katie Safiris is there, but the GTB's not there, and Jets isn't there. Duffy isn't there. Do you know what? I wouldn't have done it for this year. I'm not sure about the inclusion of the Olympics in terms of the points overall for the series, because some very good athletes will have been left off the Olympic teams for obvious reasons. I'm not sure why, and I am going to criticise it. I don't see why you add it this year. Bring it in next year. I think the athletes have had enough to deal with already. The changing of the name, an Olympic year from World Triathlon Series to World Championship Triathlon Series, which is a bit of a mouthful. I don't know. I would have stayed on course. And actually, Montreal isn't so bad, Macca. It's a bit more challenging than some of the World Triathlon Series events. That's just my take on it, my humble opinion.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much the name change is weighing on their preparation for this.
I tell you what, it comes in commentary when you're going World Triathlon Series, no, World Championship Triathlon Series, and you can't get it right because I can't get my words out at the best of times. So really, it's all about me. It's not about anything else.
Yeah, no, I'll pay that. It is. When I was looking at the jumps, I mean, after the Olympics, when you look at that being included, obviously there's winners and losers there, right? So Alex Yee stays on top. Hayden Wilde jumped 6 places to 5th. Kevin McDowell went up 10 places to 9th. But then people like Leo Bergier dropped badly, Schomburg, Yella Gaines, Velasa, obviously, Schumann, who obviously had a DNF. In the women's, Flora jumped up to 2nd position with that win, up 8 spots, and Katie jumped 14 spots to 6th. But then someone like a Claire Michelle or Cassandra Beaugrand, dropped down. Obviously, they were there, though. it's funny in Montreal because there's going to be no Norwegians there. There's going to be no Alex Yee. So Martin Van Riel is our top-ranked attendant, and he is 500 points off the top. So if he has a good race, he could end up on top of the standings coming into Edmonton. There's no Morgan Pearson. There's no Brownlee. In fact, half of the top 10 are absent. So I guess who wins this format? If you're going to look at a Martin Van Riel, I mean, he's won the arena games. He knows how to race in this kind of conditions. It might not be a bad time for him to put a stack of points on. Now the same in the women's because there's no Maya Kingman there. So but Flora is racing, so she could just take over. And then there's people like in the top 10 like Taylor Spivey and Nat Van Coverdon, who we mentioned, who are fresh. And then obviously coming into this swing with Edmonton then being worth 25% more, there's some real moves to be made in the top 10 of this thing for when we crown a world champion in a couple of weeks' time. Tim, I mean, obviously there's if you were close to the top, you're in the top 5, you've got to race Montreal and Edmonton, don't you? Otherwise you get left behind.
Yeah, going back, I think Rio Olympics was WTS points as well. This isn't the first time they've done it, so it's not new. And I think anyone who raced it, whether they had a good or bad, that's racing. I do feel for the athletes that obviously didn't get selected to race, but it's not a new thing. The ITU have definitely done that before in Rio. Yeah, I mean, if you get a medal in the relay or the individual, I can totally understand why you might not want to race it, because you've got to monetize your success in your home nation. That Olympic window is very short to do that. But to be world champion, and an Olympic medalist in the same year is hard to do. Would I have raced if I'd have got a medal? Probably not. Spent time, there's big, traveling to Japan and all the heat and training camps and stuff.
Pubs are open, Tim. Pubs are back open.
That's it. That's not good for my training, let me tell you that. We live in the smallest village with 6 bloody pubs. It's a nightmare. I think it's a good time to try something new. Because, when is a good time to try something new? Yesterday, I think, not tomorrow. So, good luck to the WCT, ABCD, whatever it's called. And, the athletes are used to this format. From French Grand Prix, from Arena Games, from Super League, and from the team relay. I think there is a team relay there as well. But again, I think that'll be very much a under-23 B team relay. So good luck to the athletes racing. But I think that they're under no illusion that it's not going to be a standard depth of field.
Yeah, all right. So let's just because we're just about to come up to the hour. People's turbo trainer sessions are ending. So we're going to wrap it up. Just to remind you, it's Alex Yee from Bloomfield, Van Riel, Pearson, and Wild are the top 5 in the men. In the women's, it's Kingma, Duffy, Colwell, Spivey, Jess Learmonth, and then Katie Zafiris, who's made a massive jump. We've got Montreal, and then the next weekend we've got Edmonton with 25% more points, and it's back at standard distance. So who wins the world title in 2 and a bit, or what will it now be 3 weeks' time? 2 weeks' time. Who, at the end of Edmonton, in this time in 2 weeks, is going to be world champion in the men's and the women's? Macca, let's start with you.
Oh, I'm going out on a limb because I haven't seen the start list. Maya Kingma.
I'll tell you that Kingma is not in Montreal.
Flora Duffy.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. Flora Duffy then. Yeah, I was just about to say then, Flora Duffy.
I'm gonna say Safiras. There we go. Just because I've looked at the points actually, and a few things might have to go wrong in front of her, but I think she's got the bit between her teeth, and I think Duffy's going to be caught up in a whirlwind of media stuff right now. I mean, she's the consummate professional, but is she going to be giving it her all in Edmonton? I don't know. Spivey's in there, Colwell, Duffy, but I think Safiris will love the Edmonton course. She'll be, her fitness will have moved up another level. She is racing in Montreal, so and we know how good she is at Super League, right? So, she's Super League champion. So she's got a great chance going into Montreal of doing really well next weekend as well.
Okay, what about for the men's? At the moment, it stands with Yee, Blumenfeld are a good 500 points ahead of Van Riel, who's then 500 ahead of Pearson and Wild, Alaza, Brownlee, Berger. Macca, what do you think? Alex Yee?
I'm going to go with Christian Blumenfeld. No, I'm going to go with Christian Blumenfeld without having to do the Ironman in Frankfurt and the automatic qualification going into Kona. I think he'll they'll look at focusing on this. It's a world title to grab. He's in great condition, and he's already on training camp. Having just spoken to him, he's not out in the pub celebrating in London. He's straight back to business. So he's got his head in the game still, and there's a world title there, and it'd be very, very difficult to unhinge.
I'm going to go with Yi.
Yeah, I join Annie. I think Yi, if he's racing Edmonton, which I think he is, he's back training. I've seen him in the pool. I've seen him running around the streets even when I've been driving. Legend.
There you go. It's one of the top two. There are the tips. We hope you enjoyed the Short Chute Show. Send us your tips. All of us are on social media. Macca, I'm contracted to say it's at Macca now. I have to say that. He's getting close to 100,000 followers on Instagram, and I just want to see the big guy go over the line, you know. But it's important for him. I don't know how many of them are real followers, but nevertheless, the number's there in black and white. So we're going to wrap it up right there. We have come up to the hour. Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Macca, for all of that. We'll be back with a whole bunch more content, actually, in the lead up to the Super League Triathlon Series, which starts in the first weekend of September. So there's really not a long time. It's 4 weeks away from now. Head to superleaguetriathlon.com for all the details, how you can be there, what you want to know. Send us any of your feedback. We'll include it in the upcoming episodes. We'll have some great interviews as well, and these guys will be back too. So that is all from us. Bye for now.